From the Central Western Washington area, Choice Regional Health Network presents the Equity Circle podcast, a place for information with integrity, accountability, and innovation. Enjoy the episode. All right, everyone. Welcome to the Equity Circle podcast. Excited to be here today. He's a new guest to the show, but someone that I've been working with for a number of months now and had the pleasure of getting to know. So Joe Fenbert, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Lawrence. I said I should just give a little overview of who I am, and then we'll have a conversation like we usually do.
Yeah.
I'm Joe. I live out here in Randall, Washington. Geographically, you can place it 23 miles from Mount St. Helens and about 30 miles from Mount Adams and about 30 miles from Mount Rainier. So kind of in the middle of the triangle of volcanoes on Highway 12.
Okay.
I've been an educator for about 35 years, all different roles, teacher, school board member, coach, ASB office or ASB advisor, and for 20 some years, an outdoor educator, experiential educator at the CISPAS Learning Center. And through just showing up and with kind of my teacher blood to organize things, I've kind of found myself in the middle of these vaccine efforts in Lewis County. We started with the Equity Institute, or I started with the Equity Institute early on, organizing events for Spanish language speakers. We've done about 23 of those. And then through this contract with Choice and Lawrence, we expanded our reach. And now we are in the middle of an 8-city, 15 event. I call it the Rock and Roll Vaccine Tour. So that's kind of what I'm doing.
Right on. Yeah, the way you phrased it kind of sounded like you're going on tour for a while. So I like that. Oh, I think that's what I've appreciated working with you is your humor and bringing some lightness to this work, because we all know it's not easy. That's for sure.
Yeah, and every day there's new information. You know, we work super hard on this current tour to make sure we didn't go to, you know, one small rural community and then not come back, you know.
Yeah.
Then that makes people have a difficult time finding their second shot. So we're all excited about that. And 2 days ago, I read, research indicates that if you expand the distance between your first and second shots, you're actually at better health. I'm like, oh, no matter what you do, you're, it's evolving. So that's part of the challenge, part of the, I don't know, the beauty of it too, because we're always dealing with new and better facts. So that's a good thing and a bad thing.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, and so you've kind of talked about some of the clinics that you've set up and what that's looked like. I'm just wondering what all this work has entailed for you, being able to provide the vaccine, especially to Lewis County.
Yeah, to me, the most interesting thing about it has been all the different groups that are all trying to do the same thing or similar things. And when we find each other, the work increases, you know, fivefold. The challenge, again, like almost any organization or any campaign or any initiative, is just figuring out who's doing the work and how you can help each other. So that's been, to me, one of the greatest parts of it, because the machine is bigger now than it was, you know, in April when we first started. We know more people, we know who to contact. You know, I was working on a brochure this morning, and through one of the meetings you scheduled, I know Ben Weaver, who's doing testing down at Lewis County Mall, and I wanted to put the information on the brochure. So I quickly emailed him, says, is this the right information? He goes, yep. But 6 months ago, I wouldn't have known that. And I would have been spending a lot of time on Google and trying to figure out where are vaccine testing sites.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely, I think, a big learning curve for all of us trying to figure out, and navigating through this. I think has been a challenge, even for conversations I've had with people in public health. It seems like trying to, they've had to navigate quite a bit of changes as well. How have you guys navigated through that, and what's made it easier for you?
Sharing information, and I think it just boiled down to just doing stuff, and that's a big. I mean, a lot of people have a hard time moving forward unless they have 90% of the information. And I think in this work, you're lucky if you have 70% of the information, just because things move so fast. There's multiple players involved. There's when you're doing specifically vaccines. So you got the host site, you got the promoters, which is kind of our job at Equity Institute. We're out there promoting, getting people to show up. And then you have the whole medical side of things. Then you have the people you're trying to serve. So all of those things intermingling. And I forgot what the question was.
No, it's really just how you've been able to navigate through this, and what's made it easier for you guys.
Yeah. I mean, part of it just figuring out what is possible and what we can do, figuring out our jobs. I know I reached kind of a certain level of expertise, and then it freaked me out because I was having the medical people asking me these questions when we had this big event plan prior to Omicron hitting.
Yeah.
I realized in the middle of it, there's no way we could do this event like we had initially planned, but they were asking me questions on what to do. And I'm like, I'm making the whole thing up. But yeah, once we settled into a pattern and found people like you in different groups, the work becomes easier. And there definitely is a feeling of camaraderie. It's not like it's all hugs and kisses at the vaccine events, because everyone shows up, everyone has their part to do.
Sure.
Get in there and you do it, and then you pack up and go, because tomorrow you'll probably be at a new one. Yeah. So it does feel like you're gigging almost, and you're touring, and the nurses show up and the docs show up, and I guess the promoters show up. I guess that's what we are. We promote, and then we offer the bilingual support too.
Yeah. Well, I think that's just been so huge, as we've tried to, and I know that your organization has tried to serve the Latinx community and providing that. I think it's been huge. What can you talk about? Because I really want you to highlight this, because I think it's been so incredible. Can you highlight some of the community outreach that you've done and where you've gone to promote the vaccine?
Yeah, and there's some funny stories involved in that as well. But our whole focus going into serving Spanish speakers in the Latinx community in Lewis County, I'm a white ally, so I'm not necessarily in tune with where Latinos hang out in Lewis County, what are safe spaces for them. But our team is, I would say 90% Latinx, so they knew. And that was our first way of operating. Where are people? And then we showed up. Big La Pulga flea market down at the old Yardbirds. We said, well, there's people there, so let's show up. And through that just showing up, that's where the trust started to be built. And we had, some real low turnout events there. But then all of a sudden, right around Christmas time, a lot of workers were heading home to Mexico, and they needed to get vaccinated. And so they knew who to talk to. They went to Hef Day and said, Hef Day, can you organize a vaccine event? In fact, this turned into the first choice event. And he said, yeah, okay. And we probably organized that within a week and got it on the books and got the link and called Birdseye and called you. And then we had 90 people show up, and that was after going to Lipoga for a couple months and getting maybe 10 sometimes or 20. So kind of going where people are and then working from there. Same with the Catholic Housing Services. There's 3 different housing complexes that serve migrant workers, I guess would be a term, temporary workers. And so we've been there 3 or 4 times, and now I think we're a trusted entity. We went to St. Joseph's Church. That was kind of one of the funny stories where we were there for a couple months doing vaccines until some risk manager read the fine print and realized we actually shouldn't be there because we're not a we're not a 501(c), we're a county agency, and some of the groups, so we kind of lost our St. Joseph space. But in the process, we made connections with people. And the other coolest thing that's happening through this is there really is it's like a cross-cultural field trip for some people, because we're in spaces that are predominantly Latino, but we advertise everywhere and everyone's welcome. So people are standing in these lines waiting, after their vaccines for the 15 minutes of safety, but they're just talking to people next to them. And a lot of those people, they probably don't see in their everyday life. So there's been some wonderful conversations and exchanges between different cultures in Lewis County through this scene work. So I think it's going to go a long way in the future, probably never be able to be quantified.
Sure.
But so that's some of the things we've been doing.
Well, and, as you were talking about that, one of the things that came to mind was the Three Kings event that you guys just did. As we're recording this, it's February 7th, but you guys just did this a couple weeks ago. So why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Another funny one. We were in the initial planning stage, and someone said, "Hey, if you offer us toys, we're going to be there." So it's a cultural event, and from my understanding, my imperfect understanding, Three Kings Day, when the wise men showed up for Jesus, that's the traditional day in Latino culture where you get your presents. It's not necessarily Christmas Day, it's Three Kings Day.
Sure.
So we partnered with Valley View, who had some All-In Washington money, which is a whole nother side story of all these other groups that are finding money to do the good work. And that's one of the pods of money that was there, All-In Washington. So they had money for an event specifically for Latinos. We had some All-In WA money. And in November, we decided, actually it was Morelia, she says, well, let's do something on Three Kings Day, El Dia de los Reyes. And so then we started planning, I guess a culturally responsive event would be the terminology. So one was the idea of toys. So we had a toy sign up, wound up giving away about 250 toys to kids. We had resource booths there that were geared towards services. We had Carlos El Periente Moreno from La Grande, a radio DJ, popular on Spanish airwaves. He was there doing his DJ thing. We had a coloring book, Spanish, English, because we knew pediatrics were coming in. So we wanted some safe place for kids to go. Instead of freaking out on, why their parents had to sign them up for this vaccine, we quickly get them to a coloring book table and give them crayons and give them a coloring book, playing the great game Tic-Vac-Toe. It's my favorite page. And then we had the cultural touch of wanting free Rosca de Reyes and Champorado, which is a traditional, it's like hot chocolate and sweet bread for English. as a cultural touch point, but the whole thing was designed to get people vaccinated. So
Yeah.
all set up. Then there was issues with the first place we're at. The building was in some code issues with Lewis County, so we couldn't do it there. So we quickly changed it to the pavilion. So that was great. And then Omicron came and we said, oh, we got to rechange it. So we did that. And then it flooded out. That was funny because we did all these changes. And then someone in a meeting on Wednesday goes, well, what about flooding? We're like, I don't know. What about flooding? Of course, I was aware that. Anyways, so we finally had it January 29th, Three Kings, which should have been early January. But we had over 400 people come through the doors. We had 190 people getting vaccinated. Everyone seemed happy. And now the talk is to have a yearly event, so maybe this becomes the booster event as we learn more about Omicron, and we might, or COVID, we might need booster shots every year, just like we need flu shots every year. So
sure.
we were feeling pretty good about the event, and no major goof ups or miscommunication. Just seemed like, and we all made it through like the 5-day, because we were wondering what a paradox that is. How do you get people vaccinated? Well, come up with a cool community event that attracts them.
Yeah.
COVID spread at cool community events where large people gather. So we are freaking out about that, but we did a lot of safety stuff, had masks for everybody, had a one-way, pretty much, told people, come on in, spend 20, 25 minutes and then move on. It's not a sit around kind of thing or a walk around. It's come in and go out the other door. And it was in a big U shape. So, yeah, that was Three Kings.
Well, one of the things that you didn't mention, and I think I wanted to highlight, was there was 190 people that got vaccinated that day because of the work that you guys did. And I think you sharing the stories about, how you had to keep on pivoting, I mean, is kind of like a really good summary of the last couple of years for, the world as a whole. Is, oh, we didn't think about this. Oh, this happened. Now we have to adjust. It's happened so many times over the last couple of years. And so, I really do appreciate the work that you guys have done. And one of the things as we kind of come to a close today, Joe, is just like, how can you encourage other people that are doing this work, or what things do you want to share with them? You've been doing this work for a while now. And so, what encouragement would you want to give to someone who's been doing this and just feeling, frustrated and has to pivot and make changes like y'all had to? So yeah, give some final encouragement for them.
Yeah, I really think the first part is to acknowledge that it is kind of scary work. It's scary because you want things to be successful. It's scary because you want to serve people well. It's scary because, as you mentioned, even medical professionals are still trying to figure this out. So, we're giving information out with the best of intentions that it's the right information. Like our very first event was at El Amigos, and we're all sitting around going, oh yeah, well, probably the easiest one to do is Johnson & Johnson. Let's do the Johnson & Johnson. It's one shot, it'll be perfect. 70. Yeah. And that was, then the next day was the day when we had the big scare of the blood clots and the people that were, the demographic of women between 35 and 55. So then we're all like scared that we just might have hurt somebody, so sure. To understand it does wear on you, and it is important work. But it is scary work as well. So I keep reminding myself, okay, what ultimately is going to make me feel good in a year? And is that going to be that I took time to protect myself and did everything possible to minimize my risk? Or is it going to be, I helped the world move through this pandemic? So that's when I get a little scared, that's what I keep coming back to, and taking all the precautions for yourself. And part of those precautions too, I think, are to take some time for yourself and take deep breaths, and maybe decide not to do that event. Maybe take a break, get back together and get back in the game. So that's my inspiration. Run for the hills, but then come back.
Well, Joe, it's been fun having you on. I really do appreciate it, and thanks for the encouragement as well to the people that are doing this work, because it is hard. And we thank you for what you're doing, and just thanks for taking some time to come talk to us today.
Sounds good. Thanks, Lawrence. You've been fun to work with as well.
Well, I do appreciate that. I want to thank our listeners as well for listening to another episode of the Equity Circle podcast. Please share with friends and family. Leave us a review. We'd really appreciate it. And lastly, remember that equity equals progress.